Ms. Blank? I see that. But in order for us to get going, I need you up here, please. Good evening, everybody. Kathy, are you all set? Okay. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April 14th. I almost did March again. April 14th, 2025 Portsmouth Town Council meeting. If you would all please, hang on. Emergency evacuation plan first. I keep skipping that and doing it afterwards. So just in case there's an emergency during the Pledge of Allegiance, we need to know this. There are 3 emergency exits. There is one behind you to your left. There is one that you came into and one behind Mr. Reese. If there is an emergency, please evacuate and head across to the school committee building, school administration building, and we will wait for further instructions from our first responders. Now, if you would all please join me in a Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for men and women in harm's way. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Madam Clerk, if you please do the roll call.
Mr. Gleason,
Here.
Ms. Blank,
Here.
Ms. McDowell,
Here.
Mr. Piero,
Here.
Ms. Patton. Here. Mr. Reese,
Here.
Mr. Hamilton.
I am here. Thank you. Prior to this meeting, we had 3 items on for executive session. We had a review of bids for our town solicitor. There were individuals selected. They will be notified. We'll be having interviews on Thursday. We had a discussion about our town prosecutor. There were no votes taken on that item. And then on our third item, we had discussion on not collective bargaining, on potential litigation. There was 1 vote taken, and that was 7-0. We also did not adjourn executive session, as we'll be going back into executive session to answer a few more questions after the meeting. On to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We will now be sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. We have 3 new peddlers license for mobile food establishments, one for the Rolling Italian LLC, 90B Nipmuc Trail, North Providence, Nipmuc. The Burrito Bowl LLC, 809 East Broadway, East Providence.
Wrong list.
I,
Is that the right list?
it's the one I pulled off the thing, so if I'm on the wrong one, then everybody's on the wrong one. And then Gigi's Pretzels LLC, 606 Metacom Avenue, number 3 in Warren. I have a motion to approve the mobile food establishments.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have 2 entertainment licenses, one for the Newport Film Festival at 174 Bellevue Avenue, Suite 314 in Newport for a screening at Newport Polo Grounds at 250 Linden Lane on July 24th from 5 to 10 p.m.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And a request for a temporary seasonal expansion of the service area for Locals Inc., 657 Park Avenue to allow for food and alcohol consumption outside dining area from April 25th, April 2025 to the end of the season.
I had
Motion.
just a question on that for what constitutes their end of season? I didn't see it in the backup.
Last year, I think we went through October. They come forward every year. And we can ask the chief, but I don't know of any issues that they've ever had. So it just allows them to have some extra space and be outside, which is nice. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Motion to adjourn
Motion
from
to
the board.
adjourn as the Board of License Commissioners.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all. We have minutes from our 3/24/25 and also the executive session beforehand. Any questions on the minutes?
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Rayner, we have our town administrator's report, sir.
Good evening, Mr. President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. With regard to the proposed budget, the FY 26 proposed budget was submitted to the council on March 28th. It is posted on the town website, and budget meetings will be held the week of April 28th. The 28th will be a regular council meeting, but at that meeting, we will present the budget overview and discuss revenues. The remainder of the budget will be covered starting Tuesday of that week. The summer community electricity program rates have been released and are announced on our website. The rates will go into effect with the May meter reading. Prices will decrease from about 16.29 cents per kilowatt hour this past winter down to about 10 cents per kilowatt hour for the town's standard electricity option. The new prices will be fixed for 6 months through November 2025. And current participants do not need to take any action to remain in the program. The town was awarded a grant of $57,200 from the recycling partnership to be applied to the purchase of recycling bins. The annual cost for recycling carts is $67,804, or almost $340,000 over 5 years. We still have an outstanding grant application to the EPA for curbside bins, which won't be decided until next fall. A special tree planting ceremony in memory of former student Oscar Hall will be held at Melville School on April 25th at 10 in the morning. The Melville School wishes to honor the memory of Oscar at a small ceremony that will include his family and members of the Portsmouth community. On Friday, this coming Friday, the town's emergency management will be performing a pandemic medical dispensing exercise, Meds Pod, at the high school gym or the new field house. Judge Lopes, our probate court judge, has announced that he will retire at the end of the fiscal year. The court has jurisdiction over decedent estates, adult limited partnership, guardianships, minor guardianships, adult adoptions, and name changes. We are seeking applications for his replacement, which are due no later than May 29th, and they'll be brought forward for your discussion and approval. And then lastly, with regard to the Portsmouth High School roof, roofing bids were opened on April 3rd. The school committee has reviewed the bids. They did that on April 8th, and the suggested remedies will be presented to the council later this evening. Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Okay, just one quick point and comment for the community energy rates. Folks who are on the program here in town, there is a 1-month lag. So Rhode Island last resort rates will be cheaper this month, but you will see a cheaper rate when you go back into November. So there's a 1-month lag. But we're still cheaper, even cheaper if you go with the basic program. All right, on to resignations and appointments. First up, we have a application for the Design Review Board with 1 vacancy. So Melissa Desjardins.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have an appointment for the Portsmouth Economic Development Committee for Pete LaRange. Pete, I'm gonna mess up your name.
Lancarge.
Lancarge, sorry,
Motion to
sir.
approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have a new appointment for the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee for Mr. Paul Kesson.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And next up, we have two reappointments for the Parks and Recreation Committee for Catherine Gagliano and Mr. Dave Fiorillo.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Our next two items, we're going to try and do these relatively quickly because we have already beaten this war horse to death. But first up, we have a report from our canvasser on nonpartisan elections and data that she has compiled over the
You'll stay
past
with me.
few weeks. Good evening, Jackie.
Good evening, Council, President, and esteemed members. A recent conversation amplified my awareness of the powerful role perceptions play. As a result, I've strengthened my commitment to addressing perceptions with data and facts. What you have in front of you is exactly that and is provided as requested. The information is a result of examining the Rhode Island 2024 election results to determine which communities had nonpartisan municipal races. Of those, the types of governments were noted: council, mayor, administrator, along with the offices on the ballot: council, committee, board, commission. How it appeared on the ballot: nonpartisan, no marking at all, or without party marks or designation. Whether the race was at large or specific to a ward or district, and how many candidates ran in comparison with the number of open seats. The home rule charters were searched for governing processes for elections and charter amendments for communities that had council and school committee races in 2024. Section references are provided in the table. A search was also conducted to see if anything was reported about nonpartisan elections or charter changes in those 9 communities. The results are given along with the links to the two sources. The Hatch Act was explored as it pertains to candidate eligibility. The links are also provided in the document. It's important that I make a couple of clarifications. The data was collected for the Board of Canvassers and was distributed at their April 8th meeting. The purpose is clearly stated. It is a public document that is being shared with the council upon request and is available to anyone. No conclusions were drawn. It's all data. There is a perception that I seek to disrupt nonpartisan questions from appearing on a ballot. The truth is that I advocate for the process, something that I have heard often proclaimed by members of this council. I've been before this council now 3 times to discuss this topic. In January, I explained the roles and responsibilities, process, and anticipated voter participation for a proposed special election, providing data and facts. In March, I discussed how resolutions translate to ballot questions and the ballot certification process, which is overseen by the Secretary of State and will not be conducted until 2026. I also explained that home rule guidance is needed for local Board of Canvassers to administer nonpartisan elections, providing a sample, again, of that type of charter upon request. I am here tonight presenting considerable amount of information, of data that can fuel conversations and spark additional inquiries. This is an opportunity to show how truly committed you are to transparent, open discussion involving the process of amending Portsmouth Home Rule Charter. For example, on this very agenda, Mr. Pites has offered a considerable amount of data that deserves to be examined in open meetings with open discussions. I'm happy to answer any questions with regards to the processes that I've gone over in the past, or any questions that you may have about the data that is before you. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Try that again. Thank you, Jackie. Any questions for the canvasser? No. Thank you. Do I have a motion to receive the information and place it on file, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have a request for approval of a resolution to submit a proposed amendment of the Portsmouth Home Rule Charter for nonpartisan town council and school committee elections to the Secretary of State for inclusion in the next scheduled election. Ms. McDowell.
This has been brought up several times, and I feel that at this particular time, I would like to move this resolution forward. And so I make that motion to move it forward. I have, after the last meeting, I did go to both Tiverton and Middletown regarding nonpartisan elections and asked them a few questions. The first one was, does the charter mention a limit on the number? Because I know that one of the presentations, there were some concerns as to what to do with numbers. And both of those communities said no. I did ask if there was a law requiring that town council and school committee must appear separately on the ballot. And to both those communities, it wasn't to their knowledge, because one community, they've done them, one did it prior to the other. So they said, however, the town solicitor should be able to answer that. Is there extensive voter education for nonpartisan election? And one of the reasons I asked that question is it was brought up that there's a lot of education that goes into that. And I will tell you that when I asked that question, people looked at me like I had 5 heads. They said the Board of Canvassing puts out the information explaining the ballot question. That's it. And then there's no primary for town council or school committee. That question was asked and they both responded correct. So I think we have talked about this. I would like to make a motion that we move this resolution forward.
Thank you, Ms. McDowell. Is there a second?
I'll second Mary's motion.
Questions from the council? Mr. Casman? Yep, Mr. Gavin.
I had sent an email to the clerk and the administrator suggesting a couple of tweaks to the resolution. I don't know if you had an opportunity to see that.
Yes, I think the only tweak that I saw was the paragraph in between saying that it would, excuse me,
I suggest that be deleted.
right, because it really wasn't part of the resolution, so.
And also at the top, I suggested to add, to say, because I think that the intent of your original motion was, so I suggested adding to the top, at the next special or general election, whichever first occurs.
That was the intent, right?
Right, and that, but I said,
Yep.
just adding those words to the
Thank you.
top of the
Yep,
resolution.
thank you very much.
So do you want to,
You want me to read it as written?
with his changes or?
With his changes that we
That
got
would be
this
helpful.
afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please. So that way, you know, if that's what we're going to be voting on.
So, Counselor, are those changes acceptable to you? I'm sorry, is that part of your conversation?
Are they acceptable to me?
Yes, is that the,
Yes,
The
because the only thing I saw that was different was that if approved, this amendment will take effect on the next regularly scheduled biennial state general election on the first Tuesday. That was that really shouldn't have been part of it in the first place, I believe. And so that was certainly something that was fine. And then the other thing that would be important is that up at the first part, making it clearer in terms of the special election or general election,
Whichever comes first.
whichever comes first. So,
And I did prepare a revised draft that the clerk has.
thank you very much.
Can that just be sent to all of us?
I believe it was sent to you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from counselors? Mr. Casman. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. President and members of council. Jen, did you send the, yeah. I just had heard from the canvasser that apparently Mr. Ted Pites had provided some information to the council, so I apologize if this is redundant, if you've already received something like this.
It's redundant to me. I don't remember seeing anything from Mr. Pites.
Okay.
So,
I've circulated this to you because several meetings ago when this issue came up, a member of the council spoke to say that one of the advantages of nonpartisan elections was that it would allow people who otherwise are barred from running for these offices by the Hatch Act, it would allow them to run. That's actually false information. That's not true. I'm very concerned that this council might be saying things about the benefits of nonpartisan elections that aren't true, that the public then relies upon, and in this case could get them fired. Other cases, maybe they just make a bad decision. I think it's very important for council members to know what they're talking about before they say things. People can get fired if they don't follow the rules and you led them to believe the rules were different. I don't want to harp on that one thing, but I do just want to note for the public that a person is barred from running an election by the Hatch Act if they are a federal employee and the election itself is partisan. And the definition of partisan as found, this is a memo from the Office of Special Counsel in an office related to the Merit Systems Protection Board. That's the board that oversees administration and enforcement of the Hatch Act. It says that any candidate, an election is partisan if any candidate is nominated or elected as representing a party, and a candidate is determined to be representing a party if they are endorsed by that party. So whether or not you pass this resolution, whether or not the charter is changed, if the Republican Party in Portsmouth or the Portsmouth Democratic Party endorses a slate of candidates, under the Hatch Act, that makes it a partisan election. They would still be barred from running. And I can assure you, speaking only for what I know of the members of the Democratic Party here in Portsmouth, as it is constituted now, we fully intend to continue to endorse a slate of candidates that we believe represents qualified individuals to run for office. I imagine the Republican Party may do so too. That's up to them. And while there are something was mentioned about primaries, there would be or there wouldn't be. That's actually, I'm not sure what Tiverton or Middletown that you checked into may do, but other communities do have primaries, even in nonpartisan elections. That's simply a choice you can do or not. I'm not sure the charter change alone, that the language that's proposed addresses that facet of things, because this charter lives under the state laws that govern elections, and those state laws still state that there are primaries. So unless you had a home rule charter language change that would purport to supersede that law and the General Assembly ratifies it, which they might, I believe they've done that for other communities, then we would still have primaries if this change were to be approved. And lastly, I'll just note, there have been some efforts or discussions in some communities of forbidding endorsements by political parties. And it turns out there's case law on that. Federal courts have determined that endorsing candidates is an act of political free speech. So their laws can't stop political parties or anybody from saying, hey, I endorse these people. So thank you for hearing me out. I hope you take greater care in saying what the law you're proposing to enact would or would not do. Thank you.
I do have one question, Ms. Katzman.
Sure.
So what do you suggest to the people that work at NUSC or other federal facilities that want to run for office under the conditions you brought up? I mean, we're trying to reverse the Hatch Act that goes back to 1918, I believe.
There are things you could lobby for in Congress to try to get that amended. What I would suggest is, if your highest calling is to run for office, don't be a federal employee. If you are a federal employee, follow the rules of your employer. When I have worked for private employers that did not permit me to engage in certain activities. That came with a job. I accepted it. I did my job well and I got my paycheck. If I really wanted to do something different that was forbidden by that employer, I would have had to have left that employer and do something else. The Hatch Act exists for a reason. And if you dive into it, there are good reasons. In implementation and scope and drafting and statutes and all, is it perfect? I don't know. I haven't spent that kind of time, but it may be amenable to improvements. But what I would tell those folks is, I'm very sorry, but that's the law.
Thank you.
And just to state the obvious again, going to nonpartisan elections doesn't fix it if you want them to be able to run for office, because I believe that people should know in the voting booth who's a Republican. Because I know a lot of people who will never vote for a Republican in 2025. Now, I'm sure there are Republicans who feel the same way about Democrats, right? But it's not a trivial issue. When you got 200 people showing up at the corner of Clements Market and back Newport, something's happening. People are upset. And I think it's their right to know the party labels when they walk into the booth. I don't agree that you should be able to go into a booth and not see party.
But you're making an assumption that everybody at that rally was a Democrat.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I'm simply pointing out that if 200 people show up for something, then there's a sentiment in town that's, I think, a little novel. So we live in a time when people care about, I'm just saying, we're living in a time when people obviously are caring about what's happening in the world and in our country.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katzman. Starting, how are you?
Good. How are you, Mr. Hamilton? Good evening, Connie Harding, 884 Union Street, Portsmouth. I believe I'm a little bit qualified on this subject as I was on the last Charter Review Commission. I ran as an independent candidate for Portsmouth Town Hall, and I'm just here as a concerned citizen. I'm probably not going to be as eloquent as Mr. Katzman. I'm not an attorney, but I am a resident. I remember one of the comments on the last charter review is one of the sides said we want to know what brand we're shopping for, voting for. I disagree with Mr. Katzman. I think people are sick and tired of brands. People want to run for council just to represent their town and do its best. I applaud Mrs. McDowell for putting this on the ballot and as one of your first issues, and as an independent candidate, I especially applaud you for getting on the council. I don't agree with this letter I heard or written in the Secana Times about a month ago. I believe Ms. McDowell ran a campaign and she went to different committees. She went to the Portsmouth Conservation Committee last summer, and after the committee meeting, she asked, what are our concerns? I remember I spoke to her directly about this issue. Whether or not you can run because of the Hatch Act, I was personally told by the mayor of Newport at the time, who worked for the federal government and could not have run in Portsmouth. But she was a fresh face in Newport and ran as an independent or ran as a nonpartisan in a nonpartisan election. So I don't know all the new facts or anything, but I do know we should allow the citizens of Portsmouth just to decide. Perhaps they'll decide to keep it status quo the way it is now. Perhaps they'll say, hey, well, what do we care? There used to be a letter. I remember I wrote an article or wrote a letter to the editor 8 years ago. When you're deciding on trash issues in town, it really doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. Well, Portsmouth forgot about that because we did turn it political last fall. So it really shouldn't have to be so contentious. We should just be doing what's right for the town, keep the politics out of it, allow the residents to decide. If they don't decide, it's yay or nay. I mean, we'll decide whatever way we want to go. But as a person, I wear it as a badge of honor. I was asked one year to run as a Democrat and a Republican. I just want to run as my own person, or a lot of people just want to run as their own person with their own thoughts, ideas. And people find out what flavor you're on, what flavor, just by talking in person. So I urge you all to continue on with this referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. Senator, how are you?
Fine, thank you. I'm Christine Stenning, 36 Brant Road. And I have just a couple questions, if I may. I do want to reflect on the issue that they were just speaking of in terms of politics. Politics come from a very deep place in the Greek world. And back when we look at Plato and Socrates, it was a good thing to be called political. Political is polity, and polity is of the people. And when you become involved in politics, you become in the care of the people in your district. To say that it matters or doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, I think falls very short of the mark, because there's certain ideologies. And those ideologies aren't good or bad, right or wrong. We all have them. And so we're not pulled theoretically into being a Democrat or a Republican or independent because one's good, one's bad, one doesn't work. I want to know what people's ideologies are. Many of us vote across party lines. So to assume that to keep a Democrat or a Republican, a D or an R or an I next to somebody's name really throws out 2,000 years of understanding what politics is and what the responsibility of the people are to those who govern us. And so I would say that to say that doesn't make any sense, or we need to move away from that, would take a very strong case, in my opinion, of studying the history of why we have political parties, and to let what is our current situation, in some people's eyes, take away from that 2,000 years of history is short-sighted for all of us. So there's just that piece. I did have a couple questions about, for Councilor McDowell, the referendum that you have. And I don't know the answer to this, that's why I'm asking it. Has there been any kind of financial impact study done on your resolution in terms of what it's going to cost the city and cost the people or at all of Portsmouth?
In terms of the election itself, is that the question?
No, the impact of what's going to do to change the complete idea of what we're working now in terms of the political parties and
No.
doing that. There's been no financial impact study.
Not for me, no, there has
Okay.
not been.
Okay, okay.
And do you have any information regarding that?
Yeah, I do. I have some more questions I want to ask first, because I think any change like that, if you go back and look, will have a financial impact and burden on, or not a burden, either way, on the community. What role do you see, and I'm only having just studied the process of this, is what role do you see if tonight we move forward, that the Charter Review Commission is going to play at all in this process of changing party affiliation and voting?
If you mean, are they going to be reconvened? Most likely not. We can, as a council, move forward with this. I have read over minutes of of some meetings in 2020, and those minutes, that process was discussed fully in the last Charter Review Committee. And in 2020, in those minutes, there are minutes that reflect one vote in favor of by one person margin. Then the committee came back, don't know why or how or whatever, came back, and the next vote was against it by one vote. So there have been discussions in the Charter Review as early as 2020, where, thoroughly about nonpartisan. And I could be wrong, but was it brought to this council?
The final vote was the school committee elections were brought to the council as nonpartisan and were voted down by the council.
Right,
The-
not the,
Are they the same exact people that were on the committee in 2020 or the same ones that are on in 2025?
No, our
No.
next charter
Okay.
review is not till 27.
Okay, so those same
Right.
people that you read are not the ones that part of the Charter
Correct.
Commission in 2025?
be.
Okay, they could be,
They could
but
be.
they're,
Yeah.
they don't, but not necessarily by design, okay?
Right.
Um, One of the things I would like to ask too is, how will you, or how will the change in this make sure that there is, that things stay nonpartisan? Well, there'll be somebody viewing or over what could happen to that? Because I know that transparency is important, and I think that Mr. Katzman made to that point. If this passes, how will you make sure the process, in fact, stays nonpartisan from the minute someone decides to run until election?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well-
Like, give me an example of the point you're getting to so that I can fully understand it.
Okay, I will. Let's say somebody is going to run
Yes.
for an office,
Yep.
to Mr. Katzman's point as well. How will you make sure that that person, wherever they're getting their resources, wherever they're getting the things that they are putting in line, their ideas or ideologies, are of their own and not necessarily of those people, be they whatever party, are influencing what they do?
I would think that the same thing applies to the process that we have today. That answer would be the same.
Well, no, now we know. Now we ideologically know where the Democrats stand and where the Republicans stands and where independents stand. I
And
mean,
you, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm
And,
sorry.
and you would understand by the political process where people stand because that is part of the election process. Just as I ran as an independent, I worked my hardest to make sure people understood where I came from in terms of what I believed, where I was going, what I believed was best for Portsmouth. And those kind of discussions in an election year by candidates, it's imperative that those candidates have that. And it's imperative that the residents want to know where they stand, not because they're Democrat or Republican, but because they're a candidate for Portsmouth. So I'm not sure I've answered the question, but all I know is from my own experience running as an independent, I worked my tail off to make sure people knew where I was coming from.
I think that's idyllic. I don't think that that's what happens
Yeah.
in the process. Could give incidences where you and I've had conversation where I don't think that that's exactly what happened. But I think once you're going to throw something out without a tremendous amount of some other study than what you're doing, is you need to know the answers to all of those questions. Do nonpartisan elections, are they really nonpartisan? Do they really represent the people? You had asked when you went to Middletown and Tiverton if in fact there were any examples of voter education. Why did you ask that question?
Well, because in one of the presentations that Jackie had given, she had talked about the extensive voter education that has to take place when you do this. So I went asking that, I took it kind of from her presentation, and that's the question I asked, because if it does take a great deal, I wanted to know that too. And I will say that the answers in both places was, it does not take a lot of voter education for
Did you-
nonpartisan.
Did you research that and get factual, or is it just Tiverton and Middletown are the only two?
No,
people you took?
I just went to Tiverton and Middletown. They're on the island, Newport as well.
Because one of the big pieces of the Secretary of State's website is voter education, even on things we don't think we need voter education on. So that's why I asked the question, is it something that you would, I do think a change like that would take voter education, absolutely would take voter education. And those are basically my questions. It's not that I'm for or against any of this. I don't think that
appreciate it.
enough process has been done. I think that the information that Ms. Schultz produced needs to be studied, and it needs to be listened to before such a change is made, because I don't think that it's been done in transparency. I don't think that this whole thing has been transparent. I think that there probably have been meetings behind doors and so forth and so on. The people of Portsmouth need to be able to say, this happened with transparency, and every question they have can be answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Karen O'Hara. I live at 279 Sandy Point Avenue.
Thank you.
I am concerned. I have concerns. I'm not hearing how much money this is going to cost to even look at this process, first of all, or how much it would cost for us to educate the public, change all of the ballots and all of that. Also, it requires a town charter amendment that I'm very concerned about. Do the townspeople know that right now? That in order to do this, it requires a total amendment to our charter. What is the cost of educating the public on that? What is the cost of finding out how it would impact our town charter, how it would impact our voting process? Also, I'm concerned because I've lived in Newport County since 1990. And I've raised my children here, worked here, lived here. When I lived in Tiverton, there was an election. I moved there just before an election, and I had a terrible time trying to find out what the candidate stood for. It was a very difficult process. When I spoke to people in the town, they were like, oh, this is so complicated. This is such a crazy story. I'm not voting. I was shocked. Not more than one person. It was more than a handful of people. It was quite a number of people told me they weren't voting at all for town council. And it took me quite a lot of time and energy to go back in the newspapers to read. And also, I still kept asking questions when I could get people to answer the questions for me. What was going on? What was the history of all this? And I had to vote, kind of feeling I was out in left field, but it seemed to me that the people in the town were out in left field as well, and that's a concern for me. Also, watching what happened in Newport, or what happens in Newport with the elections, is that people are being endorsed in the background, and deals are being made in the background. And if it's going to be nonpartisan, that should not be happening, and I would be very concerned about having safeguards for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boyd. Hi, good evening.
Scott Boyd, 12 Kensington Avenue, Commonwealth Point. I worked at the Naval Undersea Warfare Center for 31 years as a civil servant, and because of the Hatch Act, was never able to run for elected office in this town. And I've always advocated that we go to a nonpartisan election to open that up. We see it in the towns that surround us. They're doing it. They're not having a problem. And I just wanted to state one single fact that I know with certainty. There was a gentleman named John Trefero that worked at the Naval Undersea Warfare Center, and I worked with him. And according to the Newport Daily News, he served as the city's mayor for one term from 2004 to 2006, and he was first elected to the city council in 1999. So I understand that the Hatch Act has all sorts of limitations, but what I knew of it when I was employed is we would go to our council. There's legal counsel that's available to us as employees, and we could ask, could I run in this election? Now, it was a no-brainer. The answer was no, because we had a partisan election. If we declared it to be nonpartisan, those people can go to that council and ask. And what we've heard may ultimately say, come back with a decision that says no, But we've had many people in nonpartisan elections that worked for the government in the surrounding towns. So it can be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Mrs. Grebe? Thank you.
Nancy Grebe, 110 Thayer Drive. I hate to repeat myself, but I did this 4 months ago. This council has already voted to put nonpartisan on the ballot, whatever ballot is coming up. Let the people speak. Let the people get informed about this, and let's get it on the ballot so we know what the people want. If the people want nonpartisan, yes. If the people don't, then it's over. But if we don't put it on the ballot, we won't know what the people want. And that's more important, literally, than what Mr. Katzman wants. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the council? Ms. Blake?
On this topic, I just feel that more information is needed. Some financial, what the financial impact would be. Absolutely believe that my job is to represent the people. Change starts with the people. But on this topic, I feel we need to look and work with the town charter. I absolutely agree that residents need to learn about each and every candidate that runs when they are applying for this job. And I wonder if we should consider, does this then mean ownership on the town side to have a single platform to have a clear and unbiased ability to make it truly nonpartisan? So with not having all these answers yet, I just can't support this. I absolutely want to hear from the people. But with every concern, I don't feel filling the ballot is the right way to go for this particular instance.
Any other questions? There is a motion on the floor, which is to approve the resolution as amended by Mr. Gavin. Okay. To have a question on the ballot, whether it be at the next election, whether it be special election or the next general. I'm paraphrasing, but. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Again, I'll do it on the general election, but I don't want to have a special election for it, so. Okay, on to new business. Bristol Ferry Town Common Committee update. I don't. 4-3. You're welcome.
Mrs. Sears is here.
Okay, Mr. Sears is here. I have Abby Brown and Mr. Gleason.
Miss Sears.
Ms. Sears. Good evening.
Good evening. Do you want me to identify myself again?
Yeah, please.
You already said my name. I'm Ruth Sears. I live on Heritage Drive. And I'm here to respond to any questions that you have about the report that I issued because I'm the chair of the Bristol Ferry Town Common Committee.
We appreciate you putting in the report. The town common is looking nice, especially with the addition of a nice park. Some beautiful sunsets.
Quite nice down there.
Yes, it is. It's very nice. Any questions from Ms. Sears?
Just a couple comments. The Portsmouth Historical Society is working to help out to replace the sign down there. And I guess we're going to try and do something to honor Doug Smith, who was one of the founders of the Commons Committee. Couple things in the works. Any issues down there that the council should be aware of?
My only problem right now is in light of those things that we're working on in terms of the sign. The informational sign that's on the common was placed there, and I believe it was 2009. So it's showing its age and no longer reflects the area as it is right now because the park has been changed and there's no fence there, and so it looks different. And there's a picture on there that makes it a little bit confusing. And So I have spoken with Dave and we're working together with the Historical Society and David to help us. And right now I'm trying to line up someone to do a new picture with a drone. Dave was helpful, gave me the name of someone who I've contacted twice and not heard back from. So I don't know what my next step is as far as that's concerned, unless, you know, Dave or somebody else knows how to contact him.
We'll have a discussion to see if the same person that I'm thinking of that he's thinking
We'll
of.
figure it out.
I
Get
haven't,
it figured.
I haven't heard back, but I have written the text that will go with the picture. If we can get a picture, then we can move forward with that sign.
Thanks. And just while Brian's still here, we want to thank him for all the work that DPW has done
Absolutely,
down
yes.
there,
He's
keeping that
been
place.
very helpful. I included that in the report, that he's been very responsive and helpful with all of our needs throughout the time that I've been the chair. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Pierce.
you very much.
Next up, we have a update from the Melville Park Committee. There comes, there goes. Well, thank you very much, Stephen, and have a good night.
All right. Better than talking about parks and parks.
Well, for those who haven't been out there, it's a beautiful park and nice trails. Probably a little muddy right now, I would think.
You're taking my speech.
I know. You're pointed at the computer.
What's that? Okay.
Yeah, shoot Rebecca.
No.
Is it on?
It's plugged in, right?
Just too far away.
No, because it usually works, but they'll do it.
Okay.
Just not for you tonight.
Okay, that's fine.
So good evening and welcome and thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Luce of 2 Maple Terrace in Middletown, and I'm the chairperson of the Melville Park Committee. Melville Park is truly an asset for the town of Portsmouth and honestly for the entire island. There is no other park like it on the island, with its wildlife, with its forest, and especially with its water. The main feature of the park, I would say, is Mattapisetti Brook and the roughly 7 ponds that are associated with it. Specifically, the upper pond, known as Thurston Gray Pond, right behind Melville, and the lower pond. Both ponds, most likely, I believe, they were stocked just this past week with fish. Fishing season started this past Saturday. 2 of the main functions of the park are fishing and hiking, along with many other bird watching and such. So the first image you see is actually of the lower pond. And now, I just wanted really quick to mention the members of the committee. Myself, as I mentioned, as the chair. Ed Rizzi is the vice chairman. He has been the past chairman, and he's been with the committee for many, many, many years. Himself, he and Raymond Abraham have been with the committee for many years. They are currently unable to physically help out very much inside the park anymore. Jennifer Hager, which you can't see her name too well because of that pop-up screen. Jennifer Hager is our secretary. Oh, thank you. And she pretty much keeps our committee together. She's wonderful and does quite a lot for the town of Portsmouth as far as picking up litter all around the town. Stephen Dunn has been with the committee for a few years, and he, along with myself, are the 2 main people to do maintenance within the park. Aside from DPW, I can't thank local DPW enough, both Brian Woodhen and Paul Rodricks and their crew for what they've done over the years. Richard Alexander has only been with the committee for a couple of years, and he's committed to many other volunteer projects, so he does what he can, and currently he is trying to help out with enhancing the fishing areas so the fishermen have good spots in both the upper and lower ponds. Thomas Freeman, you may recognize his name. He is a volunteer extraordinaire throughout the island, and especially in Portsmouth, at Butts Hill and and other areas. Okay, next. Now, I just want to, for those who are not familiar with the park, I just want to let people know roughly where it's located. It is pretty much taking up the entire picture that you see right there. It is to the west of West Main Road. It is south of Kings Grant, Clock Tower Square. It is east of the marina and just north of the tank farms and the new solar array. And here is a map of the park, just to give you perhaps a better understanding. It's not completely accurate any longer, but it's mostly accurate. And that is one of the things that we really need help with, and I'll get to that at the end of my talk. If you look carefully on the map, you see what's in yellow is the currently named Newport RV Park, formerly known as the Melville Pond Campground. The small circled orange area is the old layout of the dog park. The dog park has now been expanded to about twice that size. The entire Melville recreational area was given to the town of Portsmouth by the federal government in 1978, and it's 153 acres. Of that, about 2 acres is the dog park. About 1 acre the Navy still utilizes in a small strip of land in between the Thurston Gray Pond and Melville Elementary School. The Newport RV Park's probably around 30 to 40 acres. So it leaves about 110 plus acres for Melville Park, including the ponds. So it's a very large area, a lot of trails to walk through, a couple miles of trails. As I mentioned originally, the main feature, I say, is the brook. The brook has been there for thousands of years, called Mattapisetti Brook, and it's about a mile long. It used to start up by Hilltop and worked its way down across what's now West Main Road. Currently, the brook starts basically at the south end of Thurston Gray Pond. Okay. Next. Just a quick, few minutes I want to talk about the history of the area. That map is a very interesting map from 1781, very accurate. On the very bottom, you see the corner of Mill Lane in West Main. And toward the top right, you see the corner of Headley Street and West Main Road. And the indigenous people of our area, the Narragansett, the Pokanoket, and their ancestors had been in the area for thousands of years. And the brook as well, as I say, has been there for since those glaciers retreated. Although it's only been dammed over the past couple centuries. Probably there are at least a minimum of 11 dams on that brook, with only about 6 or 7 still holding back water to form various sized ponds, the upper and lower being the 2 largest, of course. The Mott Farm was there between 1639/1640 all the way until 1895. The Mott Farm included all of current Kings Grant, Clock Tower Square area from West Main down to the bay, and also the northern half of what's currently Melville Park, as seen in this roughly 1974 picture. I believe this picture was done, aerial shot, just before the Mott Farm house was dismantled. The Mott Farm is really significant in American history, not just Portsmouth or Rhode Island. It is one of the oldest lasting family farms in American history. It was owned by the Motts for that entire period of time. So it's very rare in farming histories. Again, a little bit about the importance of this park, and especially the brook. The brook provided water for those farms, Mott Farm and other farms in the area, for their livestock and for their crops. The brook provided the water for the Lovell General Hospital, which was a hospital built during the Civil War that saw many hundreds of both Union and Confederate troops. I remember reading a very interesting passage on how they dammed the brook, and I'm going to show you a picture here in just a minute that is most likely that dam, remnants of that dam, and how the local Portsmouth women would gather berries from that area to bring to the soldiers as they were recovering in the hospital. And those same berry bushes are there today. Perhaps not the very same, but they're descendants. Next. Kind of a bad picture, but it shows, it's a dark picture, but I think it's very good in what it depicts. It's the Bradford Coaling Station. It was there from 1901 to 1939. So coal was mined at Arnold Point, where Carnegie Tower is currently, and the coal was brought down by rail to what is currently the, the Marina District and loaded up onto ships. But not only that, most of the ships, especially the military, federal government Navy ships, were steamships at the time. So that they would also take on a lot of water. They needed water both for the ships and for the crew, of course. And that water all came from Mattapisetti Brook and the small pond that was created by a dam that they created at that time. Now, some of us may, if not remember this, at least know of people associated with it. The Motor Torpedo Boat Squadrons Training Center. It's quite a mouthful. It would have been better called the PT Boat School. And that's where John F. Kennedy learned to pilot, or rather man his PT boat. This is a really interesting picture because it shows, it's from 1942, and it shows not only the Marina District with all of the hundreds of Quonset huts that were there. There are currently still a couple left, especially for the Gulfstream restaurant. But it also shows the western part of the lower pond in the lower left part of that picture. That was the pond you first saw in the very first picture. So it's interesting as to how much development has happened there at that time and how quickly these things were created during World War II. There were no regulations, no EPA to worry about. There was a war going on and things had to be done very quickly. Next. So as I mentioned, the federal government gave this land to the town of Portsmouth in 1978, 153 acres, and specifically as a recreational area to be used for the general public for hiking trails and fishing, and basically passive recreation. Since then, the campground was created, the dog park has been created, very good passive recreation uses of that property. And next, please. Now, just to show you a few features of it again, I grew up here in Portsmouth, and I've still encountered people my age, and I'm pretty up there in age, who have never been there. Some never even heard of it. So I encourage everyone here, everyone listening, everyone watching, all of you honorable council members, please, if you haven't been to Melville Park, take a visit. I'm actually giving a tour in June, and I'll tell you more about that at the end. What you see right here is the water tower that was created during the Bradford Coaling Station time, which held vast amounts of water. That tower is still there. It's was very well built. I'm no engineer, but I imagine it's going to be there for centuries to come as to how well built it is. Yes, it's rusting a little bit, but it's not in any way destroying its integrity. The issue with the tower is in the past few years, kids, I imagine kids, have used it for graffiti practice. For my entire childhood, I've been going there to the park since 1978. I grew up on Mill Lane. There was no graffiti in the 70s, 80s, 90s. This is very recent phenomena, and it doesn't seem like there's been much new graffiti. So that might be perhaps because those who were doing it no longer live here. Not sure. But it is something that we would hope to remedy. And one of the remedies we thought about was actually to have those lower sections of the tower painted with a mural. To get local people, local artists, local kids, local teenagers, perhaps even the same ones who did the graffiti, to be willing to be a part of a solution to make a beautiful mural on those lower sections. We did get an estimate from an artist. The estimate was very high, in the high thousands, and so not quite worth that kind of effort. So it's one thing that we would hope to get volunteers for. Now, I'm here tonight at the request of basically of you, of the town council. It's my understanding that the new members were wanting to get to know the committees and commissions of Portsmouth. And so please, this is one thing that we would really hope you could help us work with. Next. Here's just what I consider just an idyllic picture of part of the Mattapisetti Brook. There's a couple of mallard ducks there in the picture. This was taken either last spring or the spring before. And it just goes to show how amazingly pristine some of the park still is. This is one short section that has never been dammed. Those dams mostly were created in World War II, but not all. A couple of them were created in the 19th century and the very early 20th. Next. Yeah, oh, that's next, okay. And so this is our waterfall in the valley. And I don't have a good picture of the valley, but it is a very significant deep valley. It's just not very long. And the waterfall, as you see, is not an immense waterfall. And to be honest with you, it's created artificially by the remnants of that dam. That, I believe, is the Horseshoe Stone Dam that was put up in the 19th century for the Lovell General Hospital. The dam used to be higher even when I was a child, but even as of a couple years ago, it was a foot higher. But as time goes on, the rocks are being knocked down off the wall into the valley, and so the waterfall gets shorter and shorter each year, but it's still a very lovely area to be. Next. And just a couple of our resident mute swans that frequent both the upper pond, pond number 2, and the lower pond. This picture was taken by the deck of the upper pond. That wooden deck is very old and very small, and even though it's still very sturdy, it would be amazing for the fishermen in town to have a larger deck to fish from. If you want to, if you have the time to stop by there on a beautiful day like today, you would see fishermen crowded around that dock and then also trying to find a spot in the grass area. And it's just not the best circumstance for them. On the other side of this Thurston Gray Pond, the one right behind Melville, is a floating dock. Also not very functional, very difficult to get onto, especially now after we had a lot of rain, and it makes it a bit flooded. So those are some improvements that not only would benefit the residents in just a generic way, but also benefit the town financially. Many of the people who go to the Newport RV Park, they're very wealthy. It's a sort of a glamping site now, and they really enjoy this pond that's right by that campground, right by that RV park. And it's just something that would help boost the revenue for the town in that way, in the fact that we get many, many people who go to that RV park who enjoy the amenities of Melville Park. So the RV park, if I did not mention, as the councilors should already know, it's privately managed, but it's still part of the town property, and the town obtains, some of that profit from their operation. So as you can imagine, the more people that go to the Newport RV Park, the more money they spend there and around town, the better it is for the town. Next. Now, this is just one of the pictures I want to show as a really good success story. It was a collaboration of people. The bridge itself was donated by our local Portsmouth residents, just a regular garden bridge that some of you may have in your own backyard gardens. And we needed to find a place for it. And by golly, we found a good place for it, because let me tell you, that boardwalk that you see underneath it was a complete boardwalk, and it was done by scouts some years ago, which I'm going to mention in just a minute, all the great work local scouts do. But because of the increase in the water flow, it became just completely waterlogged, to where if you were walking along that boardwalk, you were then also walking along water. Very inconvenient. So between myself and one of the other committee members, Stephen Dunn, we were able to bring that bridge down, went ahead and cut the boardwalk using our reciprocal saw, and have it bolted in there just to make not only a pretty spot to hang out, but to make it a functional trail where people can now walk easily without getting soaked. Next. Now, this spot is at the bottom of what we call Mott Farm Road. This is right by the railroad tracks and the bay, just off the southwest corner of Kings Grant. And what it shows is a very old amenity created by a past Melville Park committee, which is the picnic table. That's been there for many years. And a couple of new amenities, the 2 trees, the one you see prominently in front of you, and the tree out to the side of the picnic table. Both trees are a bit larger now. This was done a few years ago. And it's just to try to help make it a more enjoyable area, a picnic area, for example. These areas without trees, without shade, are extremely hot in the summertime, not even summer. If anyone was out today in the sun, without any shade, without any breeze, it gets pretty warm in one spot. So there were just many situations like this and many types of projects that could be done to help make the park a much more enjoyable experience for everyone. Next. This here is also along one of the trails, along the Green Trail, which parallels the brook from Bradford Road, Melville School, basically, into the park to what we call Bayview Terrace. Now, this particular bridge was done by Scouts a few years ago. So the local Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts have done many projects within the park, and they're wonderful for the work that they do when they can do it. We volunteers do what we can. DPW does, what they can, whenever we ask them for a specific job that might be too much for us to handle. But there really is just so more that needs to be done. Specifically on this trail, there's still a section, at least 40, maybe 50 feet, that right now is very muddy. All the rain we've had this week. And so it just makes it very unusable or not as user-friendly as it could be. Thanks. Another one of our accomplishments, Melville Park Committee a couple years ago had our storage shed completely cleaned and painted. Now, this is one of the buildings from World War II. We believe it was the water pump house. In the basement of this building, there are still all the dials and all the pipes for the water. I wish I was able to post the before picture of what this looked like before this was painted. But just try to imagine, in 80 years, it was never painted, never cleaned. It was lichen and moss and vines all over and graffiti, lots of graffiti all over this storage shed. So just something as basic as this, as cleaning the building. It's our storage shed now for the committee. It's where we keep our tools, a lawnmower, chainsaw, just the items we need to help maintain the park the best we can. Next. Now, this is from just last year, and this is some of the much-needed work being done at the park. That's Eric Whipple of Whipple Landscaping, local individual, very nice individual. Any landscaping you need, I recommend Whipple Landscaping. He was gracious enough to volunteer his time. He volunteered an entire day to help clear out some of these invasives that were there. And next. Now, here's a picture of after he was done, and this is Thurston Gray Pond, the pond right behind Melville School. There's a lot more that needs to be done. What was cleared out were invasive vines that were strangling and killing those large mature trees. What was cleared out was basically also a little hiding area that some of the fisher people were using to relieve themselves. And so fortunately, the DEM, they put porta potties at the pond, at least for the first, say, month or so of fishing season. So there is a porta potty there right now. So it's fishing season just started a couple of days ago. But there's so much more work that needs to be done like this, so much more clearing of invasives that we just can't count on the volunteers that are on the committee or volunteers like Mr. Whipple all the time. Next. Here is basically the entrance to the park. If you go on Smith Road, and that's where the dog park is, to the bottom of Smith Road, right in front of you, you'll see that little bulletin board. Another one of the projects that we want to remedy. We would like to create a larger bulletin board, one with more information, one that's more functional. And you also see one of the benches. 3 benches were placed in the park just a couple years ago by Girl Scout Troop 780, Daniela Abbott's troop at the time. And it was a very generous amount of work that they did. This bench right here in particular was very much needed, and it's used quite often. Thanks. This is just a random, somewhat random picture. Again, trying to show you some of the work that's been done and also things that need to continue to be done. Basically, the water coming down, and this is the trench that is just south of Kings Grant. So this runs east to west from Westmead Road down to the bay. And this trench normally should only have a little bit of water in it because of the utility poles go along the entire route. And as I was told a couple years ago, those utility poles are extremely important because they provide the power to Prudence Island. And the utility poles have been getting undermined over recent years because of erosion, because of vast amounts of water going down the trench, because whatever earthen dam was there to keep the water from going in the trench and to make the water go into that drain pipe had washed away several years ago. So for the past at least 5 years or so, before last year, the vast amounts of water were going down the trench, undermining utility poles. At least 3 over the past 5 years have been needed to be replaced, and it's not my money, it's not your money. It's Rhode Island Energy. It was Newport, National Grid at the time. And, well, eventually it does become our money, right? Perhaps they raise our rates because of all the extra work they have to do replacing those utility poles. So just one little fix, that I was able to do, which was create that little stone dam that you see there. It doesn't look like much, and it's not very substantial, but it does now divert all the water into that pipe. Next. Now, this was a problem I thought I was going to be talking about, a problem we've had for a few years. This is how we drive to that green storage shed. And this is how it looked for a couple years up until last week. Just completely eroded, very difficult to drive a vehicle on. But that has just recently been repaired, I noticed. Was that DPW? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paul. So they just recently did that in the past few days. So nothing to look at now. If you look at that now, you just see a beautiful, smooth entryway. Next. It's difficult to see what I'm trying to show here, but if you look at those large trees, brown, most of that brown you see is invasive oriental bittersweet, and it is pervasive throughout the park, but not throughout the entire park. It's very well centered in a few specific areas and can very well be managed. We just need a little bit of help. What that bittersweet does, it literally strangles the trees and pulls down the branches and kills them much sooner than they would be. And it's something that we can alleviate with just a number of people and a number of hours, whether they're volunteers or whether they're paid. And just showing you the bottom of that water tower, also called the standpipe, and some of the other graffiti that's on the other side of the tower. Again, we'd love to organize some volunteers to help paint a mural on that. Thanks. And this is my last slide. I'm not going to read all this, but this is basically me stating that I will be giving a tour on June 28th at 10 a.m. So tell all your friends, send me an email if you want a little more comprehensive history on the park and be able to see it firsthand in person. Any questions?
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions for Ms. Lewis?
I'm sorry, before I ask for any questions, there was one final thing I wanted to say. As far as any kind of help that we in the committee could have from the town, at this point, I think it really would be beneficial if someone were hired to be a park manager. Call them the park manager, a park ranger, a park steward, someone who can actually spend a specific number of hours each week, each month, doing this kind of work in the park. Like I said, we volunteers do what we can. Maybe I'm there a couple hours a week. But even if someone were there a consistent 10 hours a week, now you think that might cost a lot of money, it could be as reasonable as $20, $25 an hour. I mean, honestly. And the city of Newport has done something similar with their park rangers. Now, their park rangers, they just started a couple years ago, don't do any type of physical maintenance that I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting a type of park steward that does it all, is there to greet people, answer people's questions, does maintenance in the park, coordinates volunteer efforts, coordinates getting grants. Our committee does have a budget. The budget has fluctuated between, say, $13,000 to $18,000 per year. Since I've been chairman these past few years, I am very frugal. You could say I'm cheap. And I've spent very little of that money. Most every year, most of the money just goes right back into the town coffers. Because if I don't have something legitimate to spend it on, I'm not going to just make something up to spend the money to get it gone. So even from just that budget, I would say you can almost count on allocating 10,000 a year of that to an individual. So that would be the one thing I would like all of you to consider, is to consider allowing a person to be hired. Ideally, 2 full-time people, but even if it's just 1 part-time person, 8 months a year, 10 hours a week, anything would be so much better than what we have now, which what we have now is DPW responding to, an occasional emergency, which is great. But then with having just a few volunteers and we're all getting up there in age, as I mentioned, there's only 2 of us on the committee, myself and Steve Dunn, that consistently do any physical labor within the park, helping to maintain those trails. And those trails are appreciated by local residents and by all the people that come and visit. I've spoken to many of them. Okay, now any questions?
Any questions from the council? Ms. McDowell?
No, I just want to say thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your enthusiasm. And I am grateful for that presentation and grateful to your commitment.
Thank you.
To what you do, as well as, the Bristol Ferry Town Committee too. It is just so inspirational for me to hear the amount of commitment and effort that these volunteer committees put into our town. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank
I
you.
have a quick
Steph.
question.
Please.
You mentioned volunteer, getting volunteers together and for cleanup or maybe painting the tower. Are you looking for something for this year or?
We are always looking, always looking for people. It's difficult for us on the committee, though, to, all of us have just so much of bandwidth. We only have just so many hours in the day. And even something organizing volunteers might just fall to the wayside because there's either no one able or willing to do it on the committee. So
Can I ask when your next meeting is for
Yeah.
your committee?
sure, it's always the first Wednesday of each month.
Okay.
So at this point, it's whatever that early date in May is, a couple weeks from now. And we meet at 6 p.m. at the Leonard Brown House.
Okay. Thank you very much.
It's May 7th, 6 p.m. All right.
Great. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
We have a motion to receive that and place it on file.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have the Conservation Commission. Good evening again, Pete. How are you?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, councilors. Pete Lancarge, 41 Bristol Ferry Road. Here to provide a quick update on what's been happening with the Conservation Commission and what we've got planned for our community in the days and months ahead. First, I would like to recognize the efforts of Connie Harding, who served as the chair of the Conservation Commission for the last 7 years. Mrs. Harding has done a tremendous amount for the commission and the town of Portsmouth over that time, and she will remain a key member of the commission, but she wanted somebody else to step in as chair, a role which I gratefully accepted last month. So I'd like to take this moment to recognize Mrs. Harding's efforts and thank her for carrying the torch for these last 7 years, for all of her conservation efforts, and for being such a warm, welcoming individual and a mentor to me and the other members of our commission. And I would also like to thank Councilor Reese for his many contributions to the commission prior to becoming a town councilor and for remaining a presence at our meetings as our council liaison. So last October, we hosted a series of 3 events in the Discover Your Portsmouth series with a goal of introducing Portsmouth residents to town-owned recreational and historical sites. In collaboration with the Melville Park Committee and the Bristol Ferry Town Common Committee and the Butts Hill Fort Restoration Committee, the 3 events that we hosted at each of these wonderful sites was well attended and well received by the community. We had a group hike through beautiful Melville Park, which you just saw slides of, guided by Committee Chair Stephen Luce, who, as you can tell, knows every inch of that park and its history and serves as a tremendous steward for that land. We had a really cool historical presentation in period costume by the Portsmouth Community Theater Group at Mount Hope Park and the Bristol Ferry Town Common, through which we also hosted a photo contest for the best sunset photo from Mount Hope Park. And we also had a tour and historical presentation at Butts Hill Fort, complete with a musket demonstration reflecting the Revolutionary War period in which it was built. We would like to extend our gratitude to Stephen Luce, Ruth Sears, and Paul Murphy, and each of their respective committees for the collaboration in these events and for all the hard work they do for our community. And a special thanks goes out also to Gloria Schmidt, who remains an incredible resource for Portsmouth history and a staunch advocate for the efforts of our Conservation Commission. She was critical to the success of all three of these events as both a speaker and an organizer. As you all certainly know, Portsmouth is blessed with beautiful public land and some incredible history, and it's wonderful getting members of our community to recognize and celebrate these together. And speaking of getting the community together, that brings me to our next event, which we are organizing for later this month. It is a community-wide Earth Day cleanup event that'll be taking place on Saturday, April 26th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Through the efforts of our commission member, Jonna Spencer, we obtained a $500 grant from Litter Free Rhode Island to support this effort. And as one of the criteria for obtaining the grant, we do ask that members of the community go to litterfree.ri.gov, click on the link to take the pledge to reduce litter here in the Ocean State. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes to complete this. But in the process of completing it, folks are asked to commit to some good habits that will lead to reduced litter and keep our community cleaner. For this cleanup event on the 26th, the Conservation Commission will be establishing a central location at the Brown House in Glen Park for the distribution of free supplies like those garbage grabber thingies that folks can come pick up and take with them for cleanups in their own neighborhoods or other Portsmouth public land of their choosing. To drive community engagement with this event, we'll be hosting a conservation-themed art contest for Portsmouth students. And we'll also be encouraging folks to send in photos of their neighborhood cleanup crews that we can then publicize to the community through social media and other platforms, perhaps the Portsmouth Times. We'll be finalizing these details at our next meeting, which is taking place tomorrow night at 6 p.m. in the community room of the police station. Like all of our meetings, by the way, this is open to the public if anybody wants to join. But as soon as we finalize these details tomorrow night, we'll be communicating them to the Portsmouth Times, to our community through social media and the email distribution list that we've been compiling for Conservation Commission events and updates. So we hope that folks will stay tuned for these updates and will get their families and their friends in town to participate so we can all enter the coming warm season with a sparkling clean Portsmouth to show off. Looking ahead beyond this event, the Conservation Commission will be continuing its Discover Your Portsmouth series later in the year with events at other sites in town that have not yet been highlighted. We also hope to collaborate with the Portsmouth Historical Society to produce informational signs at historical sites in town, of which we are blessed with many. And we look forward to supporting the newly formed 250 Committee in its efforts to commemorate the 250th birthday of the USA next year, also known as America's semi-quincentennial. If members of the council or other folks in the community have any input or ideas they'd like to share or would like to get involved with our efforts in any way, shape, or form, they can reach me at pete.lankarge@gmail.com. And that's what's going on at the Conservation Commission. Any thoughts or questions from the council?
Thank you, Pete. Very much. Appreciate it.
Well,
You got it.
Any questions?
I just want to say I attended a couple events last year that you had, and they were incredible. And so I'm looking forward to the events that you'll sponsor this year. Hopefully, I can make the cleanup, but again, it's incredible what our committees do. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Counselor.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, sir. Motion to receive and place on file?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have a discussion of the Portsmouth High School roof bid award. Mr. Rayner and
Thank you, Council
Dr.
President.
Kenworthy.
As you all know, we've been monitoring the deteriorating condition of the Portsmouth High School roof, and the situation has reached a point where emergent repairs are absolutely necessary. The school department recently completed the bid process and has selected the lowest qualified bidder, and their letter is included in your packet tonight. To fund this project, the school department has identified $900,000 from their capital reserve. Additionally, we have $572,465 in our builder impact fee account that's already designated for school capital projects. So my recommendation in my letter to you is twofold. One, we approve the use of the impact fee funds for this urgent repair. And two, we cover the remaining gap using our unassigned fund balance. Because of the emergency nature of the repair, I believe this is a responsible and appropriate use of these reserves. I'm also recommending that any amount drawn from the fund balance be replenished in the future from any general fund surpluses. Dr. Kenworthy, the school department superintendent, is here and ready to provide more detail regarding the bids and the project timeline. Dr. Kenworthy.
Good evening, Dr. Kenworthy.
Good evening, Mr. Hamilton. Thank you. I think Mr. Rayner did a great job summarizing. I did provide a memo as well that is in your backup there, and all the information from the bid process and then the winning bid there for commercial roofing and contracting. So this bid was approved by our school committee back on April 8th. And essentially we have two options here. Commercial roofing was the lowest bidder for both options. One, a single ply membrane, essentially expected life expectancy of 20 years. The other, what's known as a modified bitumen roof replacement with a life expectancy of 30 years. Recommendation from Mr. Simmons, who's away on vacation this week and couldn't be here, particularly for the high school and middle school roofs. When we get to the, are having any discussion on those projects, is that they're both what are known as mechanical roofs with a lot of equipment on each, difference being Melville and Hathaway, relatively, flat roofs, no mechanicals coming inside of the building. So we have been able to have 20-year roof replacements recently at both of those schools. The strong recommendation here is for the 30-year option, but obviously we are at the mercy of the council and the funding that's available.
Okay.
Mr. Reeves,
Comments?
question?
Yeah. I did 66 to 72 there, so I would recommend getting the 20-year
What,
roof.
hang on, 6 years?
7 to 12.
Oh, okay.
That's, we
All
were
right,
we
just
were this
checking.
big, and there were people with mustaches and beards when we went in there.
Just checking.
Anyway, the building is 60 years old now.
Mhm.
And if you put a 20-year roof on it, now it's 80. The school itself will probably be being replaced by then. I wouldn't go much further than that.
Yep, that is certainly an argument that we've also had in the discussions.
And that'll reduce the portion that comes from the town, which will be a good thing. And I do have a question. The last time we spoke,
Mhm.
you said this was on your 5-year plan.
Mhm.
Um,
On our, what would be our next 5-year capital plan?
So you haven't put away any money for it yet?
So our
Because
current,
otherwise it'd be 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. You save it as you go along.
yep. So the financing of our capital plan is usually a discussion once it's fully developed. So our current capital plan, which is finishing up this summer with the restrooms at Portsmouth Middle School, that was ultimately financed through a bond, past, support of the school committee and town council and the Portsmouth voters. But the financing for the capital projects is usually a discussion that comes
All right,
after
no,
the plan is
I mean,
developed.
the biggest thing I see is that you're doing your planning. Obviously, this roof was pretty close to the end of its life, and that should have been able to be determined by inspection. You should have already hoped it was going to last and already started putting away money into a capital plan and not wait till you have to go out and get the whole nut all at once.
Yep. So we, on the school department side, typically don't have, we do put what money we have available through surplus into a capital account, but it's typically not enough money to finance these larger projects. So we're always one way or
Well, that's why
another.
you do it over time. If it's a 5-year plan, you put 1/5, 1/5, 1/5 every year. Then it's not as much of a burden.
Right, for one project, right, if we were talking about the high school roof, certainly, but typically in that 5-year plan, we're looking at multiple projects with large price tags.
And this one escaped.
It didn't escape, it's just where it didn't make the last 5-year capital plan.
But are they prioritized according to condition? I would think if somebody, do you have a company that inspects the roof? Is it an absolute individual that's missed this?
I think it was a combination of just previous facilities management. As I've indicated, we have gone in a different direction with Mr. Simmons being an internal employee now, but again, we had been told 3 to 5 years was the expectancy coming into this school year.
Okay, I assume you went up and walked around it. All right. So you
Personally,
didn't-
no.
You
I
don't
did
have
not.
any money put away for it. But I would still recommend the 20-year roof based on the age of the building.
Mhm.
And what's going to happen in 20 years and how that, it's already 80 years old at that point. So it might not even meet whatever code you have.
Yeah, and I certainly, that is, was in the discussions, just based on where I know our capital subcommittee went on the school committee side and full school committee. The 30-year recommendation was,
And 20 years doesn't mean it's going to be failing at that point. That's just what the expectancy is.
right. Which kind of
You
is the
could get more,
situation
but you
that
could
we're,
get more.
we're in now, right?
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. Any other questions? I will ask the question, have you turned over every couch cushion across the street to make sure that you have every penny that is available?
We have, and I shared the full accounting of arriving at that $900,000 figure with Mr. Rayner. There is some work that we are currently committed to, Hathaway septic system. Was also just recently approved. And there's some funds that we had to set aside for the start of our next 5-year capital plan development. So again, that $900,000 figure is where we feel.
Because
we're comfortable.
last year it was about, your surplus was about $1.4 million. I'm rounding up 387 or something like that. So we're. missing-
Total, you mean?
Well, it was with another 500, I'm making this up off the top of my head here, but another 500,000 that was restricted or encumbered at that point in time.
Right.
So it was $1.3 million as of the end of June of last year. So you've spent $400,000 of that this year on other projects?
I was remembering about 1.5 million. I think we've spent a couple $100,000 on various projects.
Mr. Mayor?
Just a quick question, Mr. Rayner. How much is in the builder impact fee account? I just want to make sure, just want to see.
The figure that is listed there in the memo.
Oh, sorry, I must have.
572?
Oh. And that's the 572 is how much we're taking. Is that the complete amount that's in the current account?
Correct, that.
Okay, thank you.
But all those funds can only at this point be used for school capital.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Reese, you had another question?
Yeah, I did. Do you expect any more revenue coming in, like any more reimbursements from the state on any specific items or any grants coming in? I mean, sometimes I think you get reimbursements for. various
So the reimbursement for capital projects does come back to the town side. So our current, again, the current projects in our 5-year plan are the bond projects. So I think Mr. Rayner has included all of that expected reimbursement. For this particular project, we could expect at least $200,000. We're working on possibilities with the state for more of that, but you can expect a minimum of $200,000 back in housing aid reimbursement. Sorry, I did mean to mention that as well.
Okay, because that's important.
Right, yep.
So that should be subtracted off this amount. Okay,
Well,
No.
it'll just be added to
Added to it,
revenue in the
added to the
future.
revenue.
Yeah.
Right, you do have to pay the full amount first, and then it's a
It's a
reimbursement.
reimbursement, correct. Ms. Blank?
How much would be remaining in the school department capital reserve after the 900 approximately?
So after the 900 and after work that we've already committed to, about 350,000.
Okay.
And that is earmarked for startup fees for the next 5-year capital plan or?
Nope, again, those have been identified. So that is just an emergency. Rainy day, never know what could happen, something like the high school roof, hopefully not to that scale.
But to that point, if
What-
something that bad happened, you'd be standing right where you are.
We are, but there are a lot of little things that obviously we don't come to the council for because we're able to address them on the school department side.
And I don't know if you'll know this off the top of your head, but I do see that Chris is online.
Yes, he is. I
What
believe.
what is the anticipated surplus for this year for the school department?
So we have been tracking discussions on our side all year have been potential worst case deficit. Again, we haven't come and brought that forward yet because we've been very carefully managing, our funds to make sure that doesn't happen. But, we were right from the get-go of this current fiscal year, I'm sure on the town side, you had your own figure, but we had a $275,000 last-minute hit to the pension, right, with the increase of the COLAs. All of that was put on local school departments and municipalities. So we came into the current fiscal year with a $275,000 deficit. We've just, that did grow a little bit from, unexpected special education, other costs. So we've been doing our best just to make sure that we're properly managing that. Mr. Dior right now is not projecting a surplus.
To Mr. Reese's question or comment, do you expect to be standing up here in the next 15 years asking for a new high school?
Not in the next 15 years, but I think the next step is to get through our next 5-year capital plan development. Again, on the last one, we landed on, we wanted to maintain the current facilities that we have and bring them, as much as we could into, viable 21st century teaching and learning spaces. So I think, again, all of that comes through the 5-year capital plan development.
And the recommendation from our consultant, Phil, is to go with the 30-year roof. This is his business, so is he looking at the functionality of the school beyond a 20-year roof?
So I wouldn't want to put words in Mr. Conti's mouth. I don't think from his end, he's recommending one or the other necessarily. His job is to bring us to this point where, again, we've had conflicting opinions. Mr. Reese offered one on the 20-year version that, again, has been brought forward by multiple people. Well, we've had just as many people coming forward. As I mentioned, one of the key ones, Mr. Simmons, who couldn't be here, with the amount of work that's typically done on either our high school and middle school roof. He's more of the 30-year mindset. But again, I have to leave that to the final vote of the council.
And whichever plan is put forth, whether it be 20 or 30, and whatever funding we can find for this, the goal is to have a safe, dry school come September 1st.
Absolutely, yep. So once we button this up and can move forward with this work, obviously once the new roof is on one way or another, whether it's the 20 or 30, then we'll start to address everything from the inside that needs to be updated.
And many of the things inside that were damaged due to the leaks can be addressed with insurance money.
Yep, we have had very favorable discussions with the trust so far.
Question?
Ms. Blank?
With doing the roof, the Portsmouth High School roof now, do you anticipate your request for the next capital 5-year plan to be reduced since this was assumed to be in your next capital request?
Well, we could take significant roof work for the high school off of that plan, right? But I mean, I think there's plenty of other projects out there that, I think when, again, you're talking about viable, 21st century, at this point we're at in 2025, right? Should be, the absolute, bottom end of what we're pushing for. So I think there's still work that needs to be done in all of our schools. Certainly, obviously, roof repair at the high school would be off that list.
So am I hearing correctly that the amount asked would still probably be about the same?
Again, that we don't go into it with a target amount. That's just based on the projects that are ultimately brought forward for approval. And then, we do work collaboratively with the town, like we do in all matters, particularly fiscal, to, kind of land on a number that, we can support one way or another financially.
Ms. McDowell?
So you had mentioned earlier, or someone did, that the roofs that have been put on other schools have the 20-year warranty. And they were by the same company that we were going?
Nope, this
No. Okay,
commercial
different, okay, that's all
roofing,
right.
Yeah,
Different company.
but still very well known in the area, and we've, checked references have all been great. We just haven't done work with them in the past, but again, you know, are a viable company.
So I guess my question would be, why go the 30 in an old building
Mhm.
if our other roofs we've replaced with a 20? Just a thought.
Yep.
And you know, and you.
Yeah, and again, not my,
Yep.
area of expertise,
Yep.
but, again, the strongest argument I've heard on the 30-year side has been the amount of work that needs to be done on either the high school, middle school. You know, that's going to be our next roofing conversation at some point. Both of those buildings have HVAC systems in different areas that rest on the roof, whereas Melville and Hathaway do not. There just tends to be a lot more work up there on those roofs. Again, that's just what I've heard in this argument, not my area of expertise.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Kenworthy from council? We will reach back out to you if we have any more questions.
Thank you.
We have a couple questions from behind you, I think.
Okay.
Mr. Grebe?
Tom Grebe, 110 Thayer Drive. The bidder gave you two options, as you said, a 30-year roof and a 20-year roof. The cost difference is $679,000. That difference, invested at the rate assumed by our pension fund, would provide the town with over $2.6 million in 20 years. Adjusting for inflation, that pays for another 20-year roof. That not only gives Portsmouth 40 years of roof for the same price as the 30-year roof today, but it also provides the options that Mr. Reese was talking about. You can either put another 20-year roof on, or you can decide you want to change the school. On top of that, a 20-year contingency seems quite excessive to me. I mean, I did a lot of engineering work in my lifetime, and I can't ever remember a project that had a 20% contingency. That's on top of the contingencies which we're already budgeting for in our budget, which you have. Furthermore, the contingency should not be pre-provided as part of the funding plan, especially when that needs to be taken from the fund balance. Should additional money be needed, the school department should come back to the council and explain the need. This gives the council the discretion over how much money they provide and the option of where they want to provide it from. The 20-year roof option is the best financial decision, and it gives you future options. Choosing that and not including the contingency reduces the amount of money needed from the fund balance to about $500,000. That's a much better option for you. Please consider it. Thank you. Any questions on the math?
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Thank you, Mr. President. Larry Fitzmaurice, 50 Kristen Court. First of all of us in the PCC realize that this project, this roof must be repaired and done so quickly so that further damage is not done to the building. We also hope that a review of the roof inspection processes for the other three buildings in the school department has been done. Trust that they have been done. So a couple of questions. Is the building impact fees referenced in this document, the $572K, is that the fiscal impact fee that we're charging people when they come in and buy a new home?
Part of it. This is when people do developments, there's an impact fee that is charged by the town, goes into this fund. And if it's not used after a certain period of time, it gets returned to the developer or contractor.
So if somebody comes in and builds 60 houses, they pay a percentage of each of those houses?
Now, my understanding is that the buyer pays this fee.
Well, eventually, yes.
No, it's not charged until somebody buys it. Is that true? That was what we voted on eons ago when we established this thing. Not,
Either way, it's.
either way, it
it's
comes
the
from this
impact of
process.
building new houses in the town
Okay.
that it puts on, in a case that it was voted on, the impact towards schools. There is an
Okay.
argument that we could utilize it and change it so that the impact fees could be utilized for police, fire, DPW uses as well, but
Okay.
currently as written, it goes to the schools.
So I had another question, but you, sir, asked my question, so I'll pass on. The housing aid from the state of $200,000, I've become a bigger cynic than I used to be on this subject. And my questions to the good doctor is, Mr. Kenworth, do we have this in writing from someone of authority at RIDE that they're
For
going to
the
pay this up?
200,000?
Where's Mr. Kenworthy? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Fitzmaurice, again, this is outside the scope of a 5-year capital plan. That's why that whole conversation is so important. Again, I didn't want to get into too many details there, but we get more reimbursement for projects that are part of an approved 5-year capital plan. We can make a one-time emergency request once per year for another situation like this. That total amount of the request that they'll entertain is capped at $500,000. So even if we spend more than that, which we would be in this case, they're only going to reimburse the emergency request for up to $500,000. Our 40%, which is right now the amount that we're locked in and guaranteed from the state, would be how we arrived at that $200,000 figure. Again, that being said, we are still engaged in conversations to try to get more, based on this project and, the scope of it. But I think we can guarantee at least that $200,000.
And real quickly, do we have a guaranteed date when this is going to show up?
The work to start? Or
No, the 200,000.
It's always reimbursable. So
Yep.
just,
Once expended.
Yep.
But it shouldn't be too long to finish this project, right?
as soon as we submit, project's complete, we
Okay,
submit,
good.
they reimburse.
Oh, I already asked that one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Copeland, how are you?
Hi, good evening. Emily Copeland, 25 Windstone Drive, Portsmouth, also Chair of the School Committee. Great question with the 20-year versus the 30-year. We talked about it at the School Committee. I can't tell you why. We did vote 7-0 to approve the 30 over the 20. I can't tell you why the other 6 did it, but let me tell you why I did it. Mr. Simmons made a very convincing demonstration when he said, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that the 20-year roof is essentially one ply, I guess, that might not be the right word, but one covering. And because it's a mechanical roof, as Dr. Kenworthy was talking about, they're up there a lot. If somebody drops a screwdriver on it, they puncture the roof, we have a leak, we're kind of back to where we are. For $67,000 a year, which is that extra 10 years, right? That's now essentially a 2-ply, and that wouldn't happen with the amount of work. That was kind of how I understood it, not a roofer. So I think what he basically convinced me of was that because they're up on that roof all the time with the HVAC, with all this other stuff, that would just be a little bit extra insurance, not from the 20 to the 30, but also from the 0 to the 20 in terms of not having damage done to the roof. So again, can't tell you why everybody voted that way, but it seemed to make sense to me that was an important thing. With regards to the capital and putting money away, we can't really, the way we do that is we have a policy on the school committee that, like they were saying with Melville Ponds, our goal is not just to spend money to use it up. We want to spend it as frugally and as cost effectively as we can. So if at the end of the year, there is money left over, that automatically gets transferred into the capital account to be used for that. So this is how we have that 900,000 to help put toward that. So it's not as if we were intentionally saving it for the roof, it's for whatever capital projects need to be spent on. So
How do you, excuse me. How do you fund the 5-year plan then?
So the
Well,
5-year
I mean, I'm
plan,
just saying, it's hard to do it all at once.
right, but the 5-year plan, we approve, we come to the town council, the town council says, we approve your 5-year plan, and then you
And then you're-
guys,
Then you're allowed to fund it incrementally?
yeah, we fund it over the 5 years,
But you
so
hadn't
maybe,
started this one yet.
sorry?
You hadn't started one for this roof that needed to be replaced.
Correct, because when we did the bond projects, based on community input, based on the financial incentives that they were giving at the time, we went with the projects that we went with, so it touched all schools in terms of the bathrooms, the other things, and you were being very generous, I'll throw them under the bus. The company that we had contracted with didn't tell us at the time that the roof was critical, right? That we had extra time, so that could be in the next 5-year plan, which was the intent. So now, the capital subcommittee, I think you guys all knew Alan Shears, he used to be the chair of it, Ms. Blank was on it, Mr. Fox is our chair now, are going to be in the process and working with the administration to come up with the next 5-year capital plan, which we will send to you guys for approval, which will then be funded incrementally. And we get the higher reimbursement for that because all those projects are approved in advance. So, so anyway, I guess that would be my only thought about the 30-year versus the 20-year. It's not really about, in my view, it wasn't really about year 20 through 30. It was protecting the roof year 0 through 20 is how I understood it. Is that kind of how you understood it too? So, all right, thank you. And thank you for your help in keeping Portsmouth students warm, safe, and dry.
Dr. Kenworthy and Mr. Rayner. Last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, there was an agreement between the town and the schools that any money used as cash to pay for capital projects that was returned from the state. If the school used cash, any money returned would go back to the school department. I think we need to have a memorandum of understanding that because of the size of this project, that any money that's utilized and returned from the state goes back to the town. Rather than into the school department coffers in terms of.
We're coming to you asking for money for this project, so I don't feel like it's my place to, tell you how to decide to make that final vote.
I'm just simply pointing that out. It's this old institutional memory. Sometimes it kicks in. Okay. What is the council's pleasure? So, Mr. Rayner, can you roll through the numbers again? There is roughly 1.472 currently available. 30-year roof is, I'm rounding numbers here, 2.7.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Sorry, before he jumps. Sure. Is there a reason why the purpose of the capital reserve in the school department, that approximate 350, why maybe 250 isn't also going towards this to help? It's exactly there for this kind of emergency.
Again, I think it's just we've never had a situation where we've had less than 500,000, if you will, like in that account. So I think it's a scary point for all of us to be at. That would mean, now the slightest things start going, wrong, while we've been able to address those on the school side the last few years. I mean, yourself and Mr. Pyro were on the school committee. We've done extensive septic work at both the high school and middle school. Again, we didn't have to come to the town council requesting any money for those projects. If we see that we have the money to address them, we're able to do that. It's when we start getting into these, larger figure projects, obviously where we are at the high school roof, we wouldn't be able to do that. So again, I think, even $350,000, it's the smallest amount of money that I can ever remember us having as a starting point for that capital reserve.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, just want, if you think none of this work is budgeted within our general operating budget, right?
Mr. Gleason.
Thank you. I think we all know we're in a situation, we got to help you in some way. To me, initially, I came in thinking that the longer period roof was the way to go, but I'm having second thoughts about that. First off, if you don't mind, can you just check the records and tell us eventually what the life, what you got out of the life of the last roof? That would be helpful to know. And I would suspect that you have a membrane roof there already. You
Right,
probably
yeah,
know that.
the
but maybe
current roof, yep, is
it's
the
membrane.
single ply membrane.
Okay.
So to the best of our ability, that again, this is unfortunately going back long prior to anybody currently employed, anybody who's on the school committee. We think the work for these sections of the high school roof was last done around the year 2000. So, about 25 years ago.
25 years, okay.
Yeah.
And, I didn't go to Portsmouth High, but talking to the president here, it sounds like the one roof that doesn't leak is the oldest roof at the school on the E-wing.
Mhm.
But are we doing like 4 wings? This is going to cover like 4 wings of the building.
So this is not covering the E-wing, just so you know, it's covering 3 main areas. So the auditorium, band room area, then what's known as the D-wing is if you then come through that area and down the hall through the towards the cafeteria.
Right.
Stops right about at the cafeteria because that's one of the sections that was most recently done. And then last one is what's known to us as the B wing. It's upstairs where mostly our science classrooms are located.
Gotcha.
So again, the E wing is not one of the areas that's currently leaking. It also has a pitched roof above it, which it certainly is helping in this situation. And again, it's not ultimately even up to us on the school department side to figure out where this next 5-year capital plan is going to go. There's a lot of community input, including from the town council at that point, but some discussions during the formation of our last plan that were then interrupted by COVID, and we went in a little bit of a different direction. But there was talk about tearing down that E-wing section of the high school.
Sure.
So
Just two more thoughts. My thoughts are to go with the 20-year. And also there was talk here about the 20% contingency. The price that we have now does not include the contingency, or does?
It does not. So the contingency is again coming up on that recommendation. We included it here because, again, that figure is going to be more than what we would have available, right, after if we were to give up this $900,000.
Right.
And I can address, so the 20% contingency is higher than what we've normally gone with. I can speak, best to the bond projects because there's been a lot of work and attention put into those over the past few years. So we've been about 10 to 15% for those. The 20%, again, is just coming from the latest recommendations from experts in the field based on where the market fluctuations are right now with everything happening. Every week it seems like we're getting different news that's causing the markets to go in one direction or another. Tariff talk, that kind of thing is what I think went into the 20% recommendation here.
I'm just reading between the lines, but I'm looking at the unit prices, and there is potential metal deck replacement, and there's a $10 per square foot for that, for labor material. Concrete deck repair, I don't know if that applies here, but there are different variables that once we take the roof and insulation off, it might be one of those kind of moments. But I think if we went with the cheaper roof, that would allow us to cover the contingency better. That's my personal view, so.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
mean, again, we're here, we just want to get this
just wanna get
done.
a roof
We
on.
understand the pros and cons on either side of the 20 versus 30-year discussion, so
Sure.
I get it.
And the only other observation, maybe our DPW people know, it looks like the comparison is, one is a membrane roof and one is a bituminous, which is probably a asphalt tar product, similar to what you have. Would you assume that as well? Yeah, so it's 2 different animals, but The membrane has served you for 25 years.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Mr. President, if I may, on any other project for any of the other schools, I probably would have been okay with the 20-year. In my time on the school committee, and Dr. Copeland could probably correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we ever had a year where we weren't touching a roof in one of the schools. It's been part of our projects for almost every year. The high school roof is unique in, like Dr. Kenworthy and Dr. Copeland have said, that it is a mechanical roof. My biggest concern is, especially with the parts of the roof that are already existing, that are new-ish, let's call them, that you're going to have one part of the of a roof that's not going to be say that it's not to par, not to standard, but that does have huge utilization in the building. So I'm just concerned that if we don't do, I kind of share the same concerns as Dr. Copeland, that I'm more concerned about the years 1 through 20. And knowing that hopefully one day we are talking about a new school, that we need to ensure, and I think that the investment towards the extra 10 years is worth it in the long run, because then we're not coming back here and asking for more money, and that's money that they don't need to put into their plans going forward, and then that means that's less money that we need to spend on the budget.
Mr. Reese?
What was I gonna say? No, and I'll let that pass.
Okay. The H&G wing. How old is that roof? Was that also a 2000 when?
Yeah, that was the latest edition,
Right.
right? Which is when, again, based on the best that recollection and records we've been able to gather, people are telling us that the rest of the roof was addressed. So that goes back to about 2000.
And we're not worried about that roof failing at this point in time.
Again, I think that it's not currently leaking, so we wanted to address the most critical areas. Then I think in the next capital plan, we have to look at those other areas as well.
So if we went with a 20-year roof, I leaning towards the 30, but if we went with a 20-year roof, then we would have money to address those issues if they did come up.
Yeah.
And
that's
the $2 or $3 million to do the middle school, or 4, or whatever the number is for that school.
Yep, I think those certainly are all considerations that you have to take into account.
Okay. Back to you, Mr. Rayner. Ball's in your court. Ms.
Okay,
Martha.
so you have, in the memo that I provided to you, you have the figures for the 30-year roof as voted on by the school committee. If you're going to go with a 20-year roof, obviously the subtotal is still the same, $1,472,465 available, but the bid amount for the 20-year roof is $1,969,000. That would leave a shortfall of $496,535, meaning that, and then a 20% contingency on that is $393,800. So the total difference needed from the fund balance would then be $890,335.
And if we approve the 20% contingency, we can hold that here
Yeah, you
theoretically.
just keep it in the fund balance
And
until.
it-
if
unless
and
it's
when you-
needed.
Yeah, the contingency is just that. It's only used if.
But it needs to be approved by the council now in order to be available
Yeah, I think that
and sign the contract.
main thing there was we just wanted that to be on everybody's mind as part of the discussion, is that,
Absolutely.
there typically is some percent of a contingency involved here. And we're going to be getting into territory where, again, we wouldn't have most likely the funds on the school department side if it were to be on the higher end. So we didn't want to have to come back to the council again for this, related to this project.
I love seeing you. You're welcome back anytime.
I think you're going to be seeing a lot of me coming up, so.
Ms. McDowell?
So just to point of clarification, the contingency is on both proposals.
Correct. One would be roughly 200,000. The other one is 529,000. Or 530,000, I'll round up. So correct. I can sit here all night.
So
Is there a motion to approve either a 20 or 30-year roof?
I make a motion
utilizing-
to approve the proposal as presented with the 30-year roof.
Is there a second? Looks like you're getting a 20-year roof.
Motion to approve the 20-year roof option.
Second.
Can you reconfirm the figures, please?
Shortfall that you need to fund is $496,535 plus the contingency 20% of the bid price, so that's $393,800. So a total potential amount from the fund balance of $890,335.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. See you in a couple weeks.
We will move forward. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Good luck.
Let's get it done. Next up,
Save them some money.
couple of quick ones. Request to advertise, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. May
Can
12th
we-
for all.
May 12th?
Yes.
Okay, that gives plenty of time for these folks because they're later in the season. Request to advertise for a public hearing for a sound variance to allow live amplified music for a party/wedding celebration at 48 Aquidneck Avenue, August 2nd, 2025, from 4 to 10 p.m.
So move, Mr. President.
Second.
And these will be on the May 12th meeting.
Correct.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next is also a request to advertise for a public hearing for a sound variance to allow for live amplified music for Safe Harbor Race Weekend at Safe Harbor New England Boat Works, 1 Lagoon Road, August 8th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Once again, request to advertise for a public hearing for a sound variance to allow for live amplified music for a fundraiser at 30 North Harbor Drive, July 18th, 2025, from 6 to 10:30 p.m.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. New business number 8, Mr. Woodhead's almost swan song.
I'll keep it quick.
Approval for Portsmouth and Prudence Island Transfer Station applications, rules and regulations.
Council President, members of the council, with the new sticker prices coming into effect July 1st, our rules and regulations, we just had to change a few things around. The Portsmouth one's the most easiest one. We had to change it from the 18-month to the 12-month, so I redlined it, and I also did a clean copy for everyone's to review. So what we did was, we changed the 385 to the 290. We changed mostly the dates, 12 months to, from 18 months to 12 months, and we changed the years. That was pretty much everything on the Portsmouth one.
I don't remember. Do we put we don't put the grace period in there, right?
There is no more grace periods.
more grace period. Good.
Sticker sales are gonna start May 1st, so there
Perfect.
is no grace periods. for
Thank
this
you.
year. Same with Prudence Island. There's
So
no grace periods for Prudence Island also, too.
So you want to say that one more time?
There are no
is
grace period.
period. Thank you. Okay, so don't come in on July 1st looking to dump your stuff at the transfer station.
Correct. I appreciate that.
He's leaving, dropping the hammer on us.
Well,
In the past, people had gotten, January 1st to February 1st, so kind of eased into it.
and
If
we-
you don't have a sticker on July 1st that is fully paid for, you will not get into the transfer station.
And working with the Prudence Island Planning Commission too, I think we're all under the same assumption that what we're happening here. So that was the Portsmouth rules and regulations. I'll just jump over to the Prudence. It's the same thing. It's gonna go to the 12-month. The 290 instead of the 385. The biggest change that we have here, well, there's a few other changes too. We went for a 6-month sticker for $145 and a 4-month stickers for $95, and we're keeping the 1-week pass at $50. That's the 6-month, 4-month, and 1-week passes are only sold at the Prudence Island transfer station. It's not sold over here. Our tenant takes care of that over there. And then we just wanted to make sure the Prudence Island Planning Commission
last year, we changed the hours, the Saturday winter hours over on Prudence Island. They did a survey, John Spiro did a great job. He did a survey. They had a meeting. I think he's spent more time on trash than I have, but, well, probably not, but, and they came up with the survey that says they wanted to change the winter hours on Saturdays. Instead of 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, they want to change it from 10 o'clock to noon time. So that was the biggest change that we have here. So that was our major concern or major request for the council, just to approve the hours starting in November 1st, going to Memorial Day. Going to change the hours instead of 8 to 10 to 10 to 12 for the winter hours.
And
If
that was
anyone
a
has any
survey done
questions.
with all the Prudence Island residents who decided that's better for them.
There was a couple comments, people didn't like get up that early in the winter time. Our gate attendants liked it. They liked the hours. They didn't like having halfway during the day, kind of messed up their calendar. But we had two gentlemen, one's gonna do the winter hours and one's gonna stay on the summer hours, so it kind of worked out, so.
Okay. Yes. Any questions from the council? We have one question from Karen on Prudence Island.
Oh,
Karen,
Hi.
you're unmuted.
Yep, Karen Stevens, am I muted now? No, I think I'm
good.
okay. Okay, so Karen Stevenson, 0542 Narragansett Avenue. Question about, I thought the winter hours were gonna start in December. At least last year, we had some extra time, in November for, yard clearing stuff. Is that no longer an option? We had 4 hours.
correct. That, what they came up with their last Prudence Island Planning Commission meeting was they were gonna start November 1st. I understand we used to do it from
Right.
8 o'clock until noon.
Right.
November until December, and now they just said they want to make it simplified. They kept it across the board. They're going to start November 1st until Memorial Day, 10 to 12.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve the Prudence Island and Portsmouth Transfer Station
So moved.
sticker
Second.
rules? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Woodhead. Next up, we have new business number 9, request to have town staff work with the town council, various town-related sports groups, local charitable organizations, and any means otherwise available to build 2 sports fields at the so-called 3S properties on Sandy Point Avenue. Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any means is probably the only way you're gonna get this done. Although the property is being used for what it was purchased for, we can thank our Conservation Commission for getting us to purchases back in 2004. 2007, we told the general public on a rec bond that we were gonna do various things in town, one of which was to put 2 sports fields on the property, which we have not been able to do so far. Recently, I spent some time with the town administrator and we reviewed some of the covenants that were imposed by the Quinnick Land Trust on how you have to go about this property. Some of the work was done back in 2006 to repair the stone walls, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Just 250 feet of gravel driveway where you don't want to see any cars parked there, which involves arborvitaes, 500, 600 feet of arborvitaes. But I guess the good news is that the fields themselves are close to Sandy Point Avenue and they seem attainable. What I'm asking the town to do is to move forward with a plan. And we have some time because part of the restrictions are that you can't do any cutting there between May 1st and August 1st, if I'm not mistaken, for the sake of the birds that want to nest there. But there is time. There are people I've recommended here to be involved. I've spoken only to 2 of them, actually 3 groups. I've spoke to our DPW and told them I was proposing this, which, I realize they already have a workload and summer is probably their heavy time. But they do have some equipment that could be available for doing some road work down there, some trenching, potentially with Portsmouth Water and Fire District, should we decide to move forward and install the restroom, there'll be one restroom available per the ALT on the property, which would require water and electricity. I think the biggest person here that would be the help to the town would be Dan Keating, and I did speak with him, and he said, "Why you waited so long? Let's get going on this project." So I'm hoping that we find that kind of enthusiasm to be able to move forward with this. And simply my motion is to, for discussion and action, to have the town staff work with the town council, various town-related sports groups, local charitable organizations, and other means available to build the 2 sports fields at the so-called 3S property on Sandy Point Ave. And I hope for your support.
That is your motion. Is
Any
there a
questions?
second?
I'll second it.
So as you and I had talked about, this is kind of a how you eat an elephant, right?
One piece at a
One
time.
bite at a time, okay?
Right.
Rather than trying doing it all at once for 1.2 to 1.5 million dollars.
I mean, in fairness to Mr. Rayner, he said we could, put this in the budget, bond it, we could do it, but I don't think that's the right approach yet. I mean, I would like to see it done, but not at all costs due to all the things that we have going on in town right now. So,
So the only other person or organization that I'd like you to stick in there would be the Recreation Department and Committee.
absolutely,
So they're
absolutely.
not listed in there,
And
but
I
that would
didn't
be-
mention the soccer and
Well, with the-
lacrosse groups that are hopefully the intended beneficiaries of the fields.
Those would be the town-related sports groups, I think. That one was covered.
Sorry?
That would be the town-related sports groups.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Woodhead?
Council President, members of the council, I don't have any issues with the project as a whole. I just have a couple questions regarding the next steps. Is the funding? I mean, things cost money. I mean, I understand, Public Works, we can help out only when we have time available. But, you can't just put a roadway in. You have to put the utilities in before you put the roadway in.
Sure.
You have to, you have to clear the field. You have to get a, SWIFT from the DEM because you have to put all the soil and sediment control up first. So, well, where's the funding coming from first? So I think that should be something that everyone should be looking at before we start moving forward. And what kind of plan are we looking for? Are we looking for just a scheduling plan, or we already have a plan to put the fields in with all the drainage work? I just don't know what other kind of plan we're looking for here.
Well, I think first off, that puts the ball in your court to sit down and say, well, we need X amount of arborvitae trees, or whatever it might be, X amount of linear footage of gravel and fill, things of that nature. I mean, we do have a quote from East Coast Construction to do everything, correct? But that is.
Well, it's not to do everything.
Well,
Let
it's
the- let
exclusive of the
rest-
trees in the bathroom and just do excavation work. So.
I mean, it's $1 million, so I just, where are we gonna get the money from? Can't
Well,
start a project without funds first.
One of the things is to look for charitable donations. I mean, there is a person that uses the property now that gives donations of different dollar amounts to different people in town. And we've talked about approaching her. So, I mean, it's just, I get it. You need a number to work with,
And
and
we
it's a big number.
And we need someone who's gonna spearhead this. I mean, Public Works is not gonna spearhead a fundraising effort. I can let you know that now. I mean,
Sure.
like you said, Mr.
I wouldn't
Gleason,
expect you would.
Yeah, we're kind of, we can work when we can, just like the Four House. We helped out when we can. We couldn't do the whole project.
Right.
That's small. That's only a quarter-acre piece of property that we worked on. This is a much larger scale project. I mean, you got 2 big soccer fields with a huge parking lot. And the water that's gonna get looped from Sandy Point Ave all the way to Glen Mead. I mean, that's,
Go to Glen Mead, right?
yeah, there's a lot of work involved here. I just
So it's
wanna
being
know.
brought because we've been talking about it for 20 years now.
I mean, my thought is, we have permits for Weaver Cove Bowl Ramp too. That's the same price, but, my permit's gonna expire down Weaver Cove. I like to try to get that funded too, Weaver Cove Bowl Ramp. I mean,
I'm
I
sorry,
like
what is
the,
it?
I like
What
Weaver,
bowl?
Weaver Cove Bowl Ramp.
Oh, Weaver Cove.
I mean, I got permits and plans already for that, ready to go out the RFP, but we don't have any funds for
Sure.
that, so. I mean, I like the soccer field part too for the kids, but there's other things that are on our plate too that we should probably take care of. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Woodhead.
Mr. President, if I may, and Mr. Gleason, if you would just entertain a thought. I know that I completely agree with you on getting this land developed. I don't think that there's any daylight between us on the issue. I think, would it be best if we direct the town to develop a strategic plan, including funding and all the things that we need to present to the council at a later date so that we kind of know and we could address a lot of the issues that like Mr. Woodhead had presented and kind of know what timelines look like in moving forward instead of like, I don't want to say bulldozing, because I think that your intention is to go through this piece by piece. But if we know that we can get all the players on board, see what their resources are, and see what they can bring to the table, and develop a cohesive strategic plan for the entire property would be, I think, a better use of our time and the town's time, and we can kind of have a complete vision moving forward on getting this completed.
I think the only difference between what I was trying to say and what you said was strategic plan. So I agree with you 100%. Just let's get the ball rolling. And it just puts the task on the town staff, unfortunately, and it just gives them one more thing to do. But we do need a plan
Yeah.
if we're gonna try and accomplish this. So,
Wholeheartedly agree with
Yeah.
you.
so that's basically what I'm looking for.
Any other questions, comments from the council?
Question.
Yes.
Do any of the schools have fields that can be used during the summer?
Yes.
Are they being utilized?
Occasionally. They have to be rented through I forget the name of their system.
Yeah. It just seems like an opportunity to maybe use the fields we already have. Make sure they're being best utilized.
I agree. They are cost prohibitive. I can tell you that in terms of what it costs to rent a field versus what the Portsmouth School Department, say, charges for the high school baseball field.
As opposed to using a field at 70.
Correct.
There is no implied charge to speak of.
Well, there is if you're an outside group.
Right.
If you're a travel team, there is a cost.
Correct.
Yes.
Or a rugby team.
Right.
I assume that cost is less than building 2 new fields, though.
Yes. But as Mr. Gleason stated, this is a promise that was made to the residents 20 years ago and hasn't come to fruition. So at some point, we have to do this. And beginning a process, whether it be fundraising, looking for grant opportunities, working with the soccer, lacrosse groups. We need to do something. Okay, all those in.
I didn't, well, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say,
I
all
was gonna
those in
say,
favor.
the only one that I haven't mentioned is, having worked at Penfield School, they have a soccer field there that they can't use because it's mud every spring. And I think that they would also look for the opportunity to be able to walk across the street and use those fields. Maybe there's some help from them. Maybe there's parking there instead of having to put in this gravel driveway first, right off the bat, Anyways, it's just,
Well, they also have a partnership with Salve now too, right?
absolutely,
Okay.
they have money.
So if we pass this motion, who is this person or groups that spearhead, whether it be a strategic plan or moving forward? There has to be a point person, correct? Oh, I missed a point person.
I think,
I just-
or it could be a counselor who just pointed.
I would be only too happy to help in this
One goes that way,
endeavor,
four go
trust
this
me.
way.
And I don't think he would be doing it by himself, but
Yeah.
it's a start.
Oh, I know he wouldn't be doing it by himself. There's big staff, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
All right, this is an easy one. New business 10. Request to cancel the first meeting in July.
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No drawn out discussion on that one, huh?
No.
Any opposed?
That's the 7th, correct?
That's the 14.
14.
The second-
We have
I don't
a
even know what I'm
good,
doing.
It's a 3-week.
it's a 3-week break plus an extra week because of the end of June, so it gives staff time to schedule vacations.
So we get all of July.
It gives you time to go camping, Mr. Reese to go hang gliding,
Can,
all that good stuff.
I'm going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, you can hang glide in Pennsylvania. I bet.
Time.
All right,
Can I-
correspondence, 1 through 6 this evening.
Mr. President, I would like to receive all correspondence except for 4.
I
I
have-
would like to put 4 into the next
I have
council meeting.
one I would like to just mention and discuss. I don't want to necessarily put it out. Mr. Rayner, this one's for you. The Rhode Island, the Mount Hope Bridge and Turnpike and Rehabilitation has sent us a letter explaining that they want to patch holes and repair some of the deck on the Mount Hope Bridge, which is in dire need. However, and I have a friend works on bridges, and that's what he does. He refurbishes the decks. And they have an RFP in process for design for, it's a long-term solution, replacement of the bridge deck. Now, when I talked to him, he said, that's probably mean they're gonna have to close the bridge. I just want you to keep us abreast of what they're doing. And if they develop anything, because that's, I think, they're gonna be taking the steel out and everything underneath it, holding it up.
For the current project that is,
The second one,
Okay.
see, there's one's a short-term one, they're gonna micro mill, patch the holes, put in the rubberized asphalt chip fall to restore rideability, so you don't fall through. But they have a long-term solution, they say, replacement of the bridge deck. And it says, we are in the RFP process for a design consultant for that project. And as far as I know, that would close the bridge.
it would close at least one side at a time. Yeah.
Well, that's the problem, get them balanced and
Yeah.
they're taking the steel out.
So,
Just,
yeah,
just for
the
information.
current project for me is just, is a skim coat. And it would end up being kind of a chip seal like we have on Bristol Ferry.
Yeah, they're just gonna,
I'm gonna ask you why we're gonna bring forth Mr. Pites' letter when we've already voted to approve.
I
They're
think it was
nonpartisan.
mentioned by Jackie Schultz tonight that the letter was beneficial, so I think he should probably have the opportunity to speak. We've heard everybody else's opinion.
Okay, but what's that gonna change in terms of,
He's also expressed his opinion in a previous meeting about the
Yeah.
issue.
yeah. Didn't you get it?
Just vote it down then.
okay. So the motion is to put all 12, all 11, other than number 4, thank you.
On
Was
file.
there a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. I think we've killed that horse on nonpartisan elections. All right, future meetings. The council will be meeting on Thursday in executive session. What's that?
We don't know the vote here.
6-1.
To do what?
Yeah, and
The vote was to table 11, all 11 items except for number 4, and bring 4 forward to the next meeting.
no, that wasn't, that was not the motion.
It was to receive and place and file all
yes.
but number 4
Right.
to be moved to the next meeting.
Right.
It has to be a vote on 4.
This is why we shouldn't be here after 9 o'clock.
Okay. Then I'm
Got it?
corrected.
So we're just moving number 4 to the April 28th meeting. Everything else goes on file. Just a circular bin. Again, future meetings, town council will be meeting on April 17th. It may be in the morning, it may be in the evening, depending on the availability of the applicants. We will then be meeting on April 28th to hold our regular town council meeting plus a budget overview. And then meetings on the 29th, 30th, and the 1st, if needed for the budget discussions. And then May 12th will be our following first council meeting in May. I would now ask that everybody who is not involved in executive session number 2, please vacate the room.
Ready
Yes,
to return to executive session.
a vote to return to executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.